It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
This is the last and final installment of division previews as we preview the AFC and NFC East, getting you set for the start of the NFL football season. Coming up next, you're listening to the Kirby on Sports Podcast.
I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby, on Sports Podcast.
This is a disclaimer that this podcast was recorded and produced before the news of Cam Newton being released by the New England Patriots was announced. All right, wrapping up division previews here on the Kirby on Sports Podcast. We are back another week, the last edition of division previews. Before we begin, we would like to thank our sponsors as always: Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, and Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. Without our sponsors' support, the Kirby on Sports Podcast would not be where it is today. Big thanks to Dave Johnson Productions by Quet as well. Riding with me, as always, is the three-man booth. Gentlemen, we have wrapped things up, and I'm looking forward to diving into the AFC and NFC East with you all. I mean, the AFC East and then the NFC East with you all. My guy, Dan Dembski. Find him on Twitter at Dan_Dembski97.
Just waiting for someone to follow me.
And the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez.
God damn it, I forgot to bring up my prop. I had a prop. I was going to bring out a knife and be like, got it. It's all
That's
right.
a good prop.
Well, gentlemen, how are we?
Doing well, man. Ready to knock the East out here, man, and just ready for football in general. I think it's been a long time coming, and we're all just sort of antsy and anxious, ready for it to start.
It's
yeah,
so
you
great.
can smell it. It's in the air. I can't wait for the weather to start changing, for the cooler weather and football. And
yeah,
I'm excited. By the way, Kirby, I have a little fun fact for you. I found this out 2 days ago. I actually work down the street from the Washington football team's facility.
In
I didn't
Ashburn.
know that.
wow.
I literally drove by their little bubble thing, their little indoor practice facility. I was like, what?
I did that once, and I was like, what is that big bubble? I was going to some doctor's appointment in Northern Virginia, and I drive by, and I'm like, what in the name of is that huge bubble? And I see off in the distance just a sign. I could barely make it out. They were then the Washington Redskins, and it said Washington Redskins. Okay,
Racist.
but the Washington football team now. But I was like, oh my goodness, it's their facility. And I was like 10 years old, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That's
You were probably exploding with joy. Oh man,
you were explaining. I was just like, wow, that is a very underwhelming training facility. And then you see on Hard Knocks, you get a full tour of what the Cowboys have, and it's a goddamn stadium in itself.
Oh yeah.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
I've got to admit, the Cowboys facility looks pretty nice.
Stadium is nicer. Our uniforms are nicer.
That practice facility is very nice. They have like an indoor and an outdoor field, right?
Yeah, you get a full tour of it on the newest episode of Hard Knocks.
Well, man,
It's
Hard Knocks.
incredible.
I can't wait. All right, gentlemen, let's dive in. We'll get into the NFC East in a little bit, starting off with the AFC East. How this division ended up last year, the Buffalo Bills, a remarkable season, 13-3. The Dolphins 10-6, the Patriots 7-9, and the Jets 2-14. Starting off with the Buffalo Bills, I'll say this right now: the Buffalo Bills are very hungry and thirsty for another shot to get just a little bit farther. I feel like this Bills team is prepared and capable to make their run to the Super Bowl this year. I would not be surprised if Josh Allen has another remarkable season. He only threw 10 interceptions last season, and he looked dominant. And this whole Bills team, it's not like the Bills of the past that have not lived up to the expectations. They made it to the playoffs, and they made it pretty darn far. And I'm not going to be surprised if the Bills make the next push and if they make it all the way to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. But the only factor is you got to watch out for Kansas City still in the AFC.
Yeah. They don't have a lot of weaknesses that I can drill down. They have some issues on the offensive line, which kind of showed themselves there in the later in the playoffs last year. Their defense was average last year, but I still think they have a pretty solid defense, led by former Virginia Tech Hokie, Tremaine Edmonds. I think it's Tremaine.
Yeah,
Tremaine Edmonds. So they don't really have a lot of holes in their team, and I think they also helped their defensive line. They took 2 defensive linemen with their first 2 picks. So, they're about the safest bet in this division, obviously, again this year to I hate to say 15-2 because that's a high mark, but I really don't see them losing more than 3 games. I think that's my prediction. So I don't really have much else to add to that. I think the offense is going to be just as good. Injuries and COVID we still have to keep that in mind. Those are going to play a factor this year for sure. We're already seeing some of that across the league. So it's something to keep in mind. But if they can stay healthy, just like with every other team, but especially the Bills, they're gonna have a pretty easy time, I think, and a pretty easy run, and probably go deep in the playoffs, if not to the Super Bowl this year rather.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills are just, it would not surprise me if they end up winning the AFC, if they end up beating out Kansas City and winning the whole entire conference, and even winning the Super Bowl. I mean, there's such a loaded team. Josh Allen made such a huge jump last season, and obviously, it might not be like he won't make that big of a jump this season, but like he's already at such a high level that it's not going to really change this year, I don't think. But I think he's definitely primed for an MVP season, in my opinion. They just have so many weapons. I mean, their defense is pretty good. I mean, they got, I know like they're very high on who they got on the defensive line, because they feel like those guys are going to be like, because they saw what Tampa Bay did against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Now, albeit Tampa Bay had a makeshift line in the Super Bowl. So like, I don't know how well that's going to work, but they believe that like that's the blueprint to beat Kansas City, and that they have the guys to do so. So, I mean, you look, they got, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. Who's their running back? Remind me again who's their running back.
Oh, shoot. I'm drawing a blank. Give me 1 sec. I'll look that up.
You put me on the spot there with that running back, but can I mention the Bills just signed Steven Sims?
Yeah, another decent target.
I mean, he looked.
He's not a weapon,
good.
but
I was gonna be completely honest with you guys. I don't know who the hell Steven Sims is.
Played for Washington.
That's why
he's bringing him up.
Who cares?
No, so I mean, anyway, Steven Sims looked very impressive in his time in Washington, in my opinion, and to see him get signed by the Bills, I feel like he can help. He can be a weapon for Josh Allen as well. But I mean, obviously, I do have some bias there because I did watch him play for Washington, and he did pretty well, but I feel like in this Bills team, they're only growing. I feel like Steven Sims, that's a perfect fit for him.
Devin Singletary is their starter.
Yeah, Singletary.
He's not too bad.
They also
I
signed
like Singletary.
Yeah, they also signed Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason, but he's
old.
He's very old. Yeah. So
I mean, his biggest moment was that, dropped catch in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So where Garoppolo threw the perfect pass and all he had to do was catch it.
That's right.
And he couldn't do it. So, I mean, who knows how much of an impact he's going to make, but I mean, they already have a pretty solid receiving core there in Buffalo. So, I mean, it would not surprise, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they end up, winning the whole damn thing.
Right on the depth chart. Yeah, he's number 2 on the depth chart, which is strange. I don't know if this is accounting.
Well, I guess because Cole Beasley's more of a slot receiver, so he would be number 3 no matter what.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, there's not much to say. This team is really good. They have built properly. Obviously, they're now the top dog in that division that, obviously, was run by the Patriots for the past like 20 years. It's nice to see, but and I think they're going to be one of those teams that really benefits from fans being back in the stadiums, because like those Buffalo fans it's a great fan base. So they're going to really benefit from it this season.
Yeah.
Jumping off of trucks and landing onto tables in 20-degree weather.
Those guys are freaking.
They're insane.
Yeah,
they really are insane.
They're maniacs.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's not much left to say. I mean, about the Bills. They're going to be good. I think they're going to either go 13-4 or 14-3. They're not going to lose a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I feel like they easily have first place locked up in this division.
I think especially another thing, the reason why they have it locked up is because there's so many questions with all the other teams in the divisions and in that division this year, especially.
Even with the Patriots, even though they loaded up, like it's still very, we still don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be. We don't know if Cam lost the job because of this whole COVID misunderstanding, if it's going to be Mac Jones. And then on top of that, will this team that they pretty much bought, if it's all going to mesh, we don't know. And then the Dolphins, but we'll get to all these teams.
It's a big thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think, they have the experience now. They've been in the postseason. They showed just how good they were last year. I think they're not going to have a very hard time winning this division. I'm more interested to see who takes second place in this division. And especially with the Pats and Dolphins, I think that's going to be an interesting matchup this year for sure. So we'll get to them, but I don't think there's anything else to say about the Bills. I mean, they're the Bills. It's funny. The Bills and Browns are not who they used to be. They've come a long way to say the least, especially the Browns. But I think they're not going to have a very hard time, to be honest with you. Winning, I think 14-3 is probably a safe bet. I'm not a betting man, and I don't have the money to bet. But if I did, I'd put my money down on that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely put my money down on Josh Allen winning MVP. I think he's going to have a big season this year.
Well, with that being said, that was very short. Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. I'm sure we have more to talk about with the Miami Dolphins. I mean, obviously, they are improving, and they have improved more this offseason. But the real problem with Miami was the fact that there were so many different quarterback changes. I mean, you have Fitzpatrick coming off the bench, Fitzpatrick starting, putting in Tua because Fitzpatrick isn't playing well. I mean, all the scenarios there wasn't like an understanding, I believe, on who's really the starter here. I feel like Brian Flores at some point during last season was like, let's just go with Tua this game, see how he rolls. And if he didn't like that, he'll put Fitz in. And I mean, in the National Football League, that is unique to put in one quarterback and switch out for another quarterback. But still, I don't really like it. I feel like if you name somebody the starter, roll with them until you know for sure they cannot produce the way that your team needs them to produce. Then put in your backup guy and see how he does. But I mean, the amount of switching at quarterback they have done, I mean, it was confusing to me. But I mean, a 10-6 record, it was just a very odd season. But if the Dolphins have some sort of normalcy and I mean, if Tua stays healthy, I feel like the Dolphins could improve a little bit, but still, there's a long way to go with this Miami Dolphins team.
Well, what's the old saying? If you have two quarterbacks, you have none. I mean, the thing, there's a lot of questions about Tua going into the season. Now, the thing is, obviously last year, COVID year, weird year. It was weird the way they switched to Tua, in my opinion, but also like Tua, that offense wasn't built for Tua. Like it was all built for Ryan Fitzpatrick. So like they're two like totally different quarterbacks. Things that, Fitzpatrick can do, Tua can't, like certain reads and stuff, I think it was. But I mean, to me, I'm not sure if Tua is going to ultimately be the answer for this team. There's a lot of problems that people have been bringing up, like his deep ball velocity, like it's just not there. It's I don't know. We got to see how he does this season as the full-time starter, like from like week 1, and it's an offense built for him. Obviously they drafted Waddle out of Alabama, his guy, who apparently has been a stud in training camp. And Brian Flores, I mean, just last season was just so weird. Like Kirby said, like they kept switching and like not really. And I mean, like it worked out from time to time, obviously, but and they finished with a 10-6 record. They're showing improvement, but it's just we'll see what leaps Tua makes this season. I mean, that's just going to be it. Can Tua improve enough to have this team in a position to actually make the playoffs this year and not have a winning record, but not make it in because they couldn't beat the Bills on the last week of the season.
Then they got crushed. They lost by 30 points. This past season. Yeah, I think you guys both hit the nail on the head. I mean, it doesn't work in the NFL to have a 2-quarterback system where you kind of just willy-nilly throw somebody out there, especially when you have a rookie quarterback. It messes with their psyche a lot when you just kind of when you keep doing that, when you dangle the hope out there that they're going to be the full-time starter or that they're going to see the field at all during the game, and then you decide to stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick for that particular game or whatnot. I'm sure it didn't bother Ryan Fitzpatrick too much just because he's been in the league since 2005 and he's played with a lot of teams and he's probably seen most of that stuff. And I think that's one advantage that the Dolphins had last year is they had someone who, as far as reading defenses and all that, I mean, NFL defenses, Ryan Fitzpatrick was the perfect guy for that because he's been around the league for so long. He's seen it all, literally. So, not to say he didn't have his terrible moments, as well as his amazing moments. He's one of the most interesting quarterbacks.
Fitzmagic.
Man. But I actually think Tua, with his second season and an off season to work through the kinks, and also like you said, Carlos, get a playbook kind of built around him and accustom into this offense. I think he's gonna do really well this season. I really believe that. Like you said, there are some glaring issues, but keep in mind, he hasn't had a full season yet. I mean, it was a staggered season to say the least for him last year, and I'm sure again it messed with him mentally. So, I kind of think the Dolphins are going to be one of the teams to watch for in the AFC that could sneak into the playoffs and maybe cause some issues if they're able to get in. Obviously, I think their best bet's a wild card, especially with the expanded playoffs. You have that extra wild card spot now. So, I also thought they had a pretty good offseason. They signed a lot of guys on both sides of the ball, and I think improved a little bit in that area, especially, obviously in the offseason, they drafted Jalen Waddle, as Carlos mentioned, which, he's probably going to be the go-to guy right off the bat, I imagine, or one of the go-to guys, at least probably wide receiver 2.
It'll be either him or Devontae Parker.
True. Yeah. Parker will be one since he's been around a while. But yeah, I think you guys pretty much covered it all. I think I think with Tua having an opportunity, like Carlos said, to get adjusted in this offense, and for a playbook to finally be tailored to his strengths as a quarterback, it's got to be difficult last year for that offense to know what you're going to do game to game, because I'm sure the offensive coordinator is thinking, well, who's going to start? Is Tua going to come in? Is Fitzpatrick going to come off the bench? It's not a good way to run an NFL football team. So it's not really a good way to do it at any level. I think maybe you could get away with it in high school or something, but in college and in the NFL, forget about it. I mean, it's just not not the move. So yeah,
well, especially at that position, because like at that position you want it, like that's the position you need the most certainty at. Yep. Like you need to know who your leader is going to be, like who's going to be the guy who's giving the ball to everybody,
commanding the offense. Right.
Yeah. Like you need the most, yeah. I mean, that's it. You just need the most certainty at that position.
Exactly. Totally agree. So yeah, I think if, I think they're a 10 or 11 win team this year. I really think that, and look, it's possible 10 and 17 can make the postseason. I mean, we've seen funnier things happen before. So especially with the AFC this year, there's a lot of, there really aren't a lot of top tier teams. I think, you have 3 or 4 teams you could put up there, and then everybody else is just kind of a mystery. So, yeah, I think the Dolphins could be one of those teams this year that if they're able to sneak into the playoffs, they could cause some issues for whoever they go up against.
I will say this: if I were compiling a list of some teams in the NFL that could be sleepers, I would put the Dolphins pretty high on that list, because I mean, I know, going back to your point, Dan, about having a system tailored to Tua, I feel like that will help tremendously, that they're not going to be switching quarterbacks. I mean, hopefully not, but still, I feel like the Dolphins have talent that they could potentially sneak in as a wild card team. So I would not be surprised if this Dolphins team was a sleeper and ended up in the wild card and maybe upsetting a wild card team moving on to the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think they're only going to get more comfortable the longer they, if they're going to put the ball into his hands, if they can get him, it might take a couple games this year. It might take 3 or 4 games for him to get adjusted to being the full-time starter in the National Football League. That's quite a difference from last year. So, it might be a little rust to start the season, but I think if they can go on a run mid-season, I really think that, they could be a dangerous team, not just for this season, but I think for future seasons as well, with giving Tua all the power in that offense.
Has Tua played this preseason?
That's a great question.
See, I'm not really watching preseason games, so I don't know if he's played or not.
I doubt it.
Preseason. I mean, see, this is how much we know about preseason.
He's not playing this weekend. That's an NBC Sports article, but I think he did play last week, it says, but I don't.
I mean, a lot of the big names don't, or a lot of the starting quarterbacks aren't really playing this preseason, right, just because of the extra game.
Tua played against Atlanta. The Dolphins won 37-17. He won 16 for 23, 183 yards and a touchdown.
And they're resting all their starters against the Bengals this weekend, which makes perfect sense.
One thing about the preseason, though, that really just irritates me? It's they're hyping all these quarterbacks and all these new players up like such and such, and throw up their stat line.
That's social media for you. That's the social media world we live in.
Regular season, but it's preseason, man.
No, I agree. No, I agree. I think it's ridiculous.
And this is coming from the guy who, was overreacting to Trey Lance's pass.
Okay,
being like,
that-
49ers in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. He was
called a
stereotyped that day.
You're part of the problem, Kirby. Kirby, you're part of the problem.
He's drinking water today. He's being responsible.
It's called a I mean, I was like, let me just be funny and say, oh, Trey Lance looked amazing, 49ers to the Super Bowl. But, it genuinely irritates me when they throw up stat lines.
So does it irritate you that, when they throw up Dwayne Haskins stats?
I mean, I
as long as they're bad.
Favorite quarterback of all time?
I haven't paid attention, so I'm not really sure.
Oh, I know that's not
true. I know you're looking up his stats. It's fine. No. Kirby, it's okay. It's okay.
What about you have Justin Fields after the first preseason game talk about, the game was a lot slower than I expected. Well, you're going up against second and third string players, and then what happens?
And then he gets
what happens this past week? He gets his clock totally clean.
I hope
a dirty hit.
I hope that guy got ejected because there's no
dirty hit for sure. But
there's no place for that in the preseason.
No.
Well, here's the thing.
There's no place for that.
That you guys, you got to understand about, that guy was probably, this is probably his only opportunity. So he was just trying to make a good impression, and he just took it a little too far.
He just took it.
That's the thing is that that's why a lot of guys or a lot of teams don't play their starting quarterback during the preseason, because they know that there's dudes that are just going to take it too far because they're just trying to make a good impact on the team or
total
impress
Bears
the,
move.
the team. So
total Bears.
I mean, but the thing is, Justin Fields isn't their starter this year. They're very adamant that it's going to be Andy Dalton.
Yeah, for 2 weeks.
I'll bring up one example. I know this is a very kind of bad example, but
here we go.
The preseason, the past 2 seasons in preseason. Are
we including last year where there wasn't a preseason?
No. So the past 2, not counting this season, not the COVID year, the past 2 preseasons for the Washington football team. All this hype about Darius Geis, and he gets injured twice, and he's out for the season. So it's like preseason can do that to you.
That's why you don't go hard in the preseason, and you don't play your starters. That's why people get pissed off when they go to games and whatnot. And they're like, "Oh, so and so's not playing." I'm like, why would they? This game doesn't count for anything. It's mostly for, like Carlos said, it's for guys who are either trying to make the team or they're trying to move up the depth chart. Or a lot of times just trying to make it on special teams at a certain point. So
absolutely,
it's not for the starters to show out, even though NFL social media seems to think otherwise.
Well, they're just trying to generate hype. That's all they're trying to do. Ultimately, they know that these games don't matter. Goddamn, Aaron Rodgers hasn't even played this preseason. He's not going to.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah, does he really have?
There's just certain guys that don't need to. Like, why did Patrick Mahomes have to take 66 snaps like the other day? There's no need.
That surprised me. 66 snaps. My gosh,
it was something like that. It was unnecessary.
Man.
Like, you're putting yourself at unnecessary risk for games that don't matter. These are scrimmages. That's basically what you got to look at. Like, if you go in, you can half-ass it. Like, you're a starter. You know what to do. You put in most of your work during actual camp.
Yep.
You don't need to really feel the game. You know what you're going into.
It irritates me too when reporters tweet from training camp or practice, this such and such threw 4 interceptions or a deep diving catch in practice. I
get that.
I mean,
you know
really?
What? Yeah,
I get that.
It generates eyeballs and it gets fans talking about their team and what they might look like.
Yeah.
It's a little different, and especially when it's the starting offense going against the starting defense. Yeah. So you kind of get to see both sides of it. So I totally understand that. Is it annoying at times? Absolutely. I totally think it's annoying, but I totally get that compared to, putting up a quarterback who threw 7 passes and putting his stats on Twitter. So that's just what it is. But
all right, let's move on. Team
We've drifted far from the topic here.
Yes, we have.
We always do.
But that's all right. That's the fun about this podcast.
3-man booth. Man, let me tell you about the 3-man booth, man.
We need to get T-shirts made.
We need a coach's clicker in here, man.
We do need that.
All right, back to the podcast.
Okay. All right, Dan. Let's get back. Let's talk about the New England Patriots, who, for the first time in since I could remember, the New England Patriots missed the playoffs with a 7-9 record. Obviously, we all know the story. I will not go back into the story, but you look, and this Patriots team really, really struggled last season. And granted, you had some guys who opted out due to COVID, but this year for the Patriots in the off season, it looked like they had no regard for their cap space. They just went out, signed.
I mean,
drafted,
they had it for the first time in forever.
It wasn't that they didn't. They had like no regard for it. They just had the cap space. They were the one of few teams that actually had cap space,
and they made moves. And obviously,
moves.
I expected Belichick and Robert Kraft to go out and make moves to build this Patriots team back to what it is. And obviously there are questions. I will just touch on this. A COVID misunderstanding and Cam Newton's out for 5 to 7 days. I don't really understand that, but I mean, I don't really know about that, but other than that, the Patriots are making moves to get better, but I still feel like they won't be able to make the playoffs this season because the Bills are just looking way too good, and the Dolphins, I mean, they could end up in second place. They could sneak in a wild card, but I doubt it with this Patriots team.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Yeah, I think, and I think they've really made a lot of great moves in free agency, like you mentioned, Josh. They brought in, let's just go through a couple of these that I just jotted down. They brought in defensive back Jalen Mills, wide receiver Nelson Aguilar, defensive end Matthew Judon, wide receiver Kendrick Bourne, and tight end Hunter Henry. So, those are just some guys.
Brought back Kyle Van Noy.
Yeah, that's
Miami.
That's a pretty big signing. So,
Dan's heart is breaking over Matthew Judon. I can hear it.
Please don't. It'll be fine. I'll get over it. But on paper, they won the offseason. But again, chemistry and players, working together, it's something you can't see until the season starts, until we get into the swing of things. So I put that at the bottom. It's all about just how they mesh, and if they mesh well or not. Nobody knows. So. And I think Mac Jones, I think he will, if he's not the start at the beginning of the season, I think he will be. And I read something today that said that, people around camp have been saying he's looked fantastic during the, during training camp and preseason as well. So I think he will be the starter. I don't think it's immediate just because, seniority, you got to give it to Cam Newton just because he's, he understands the playbook better probably at this point, and he's more well equipped to start the season. But I don't think it's long until Mac Jones comes in and pretty much becomes the full-time starter, especially if Cam struggles like he did, at the start of last season. They didn't have any other options last year, so this is a little bit of a different story. I think this year is going to decide Cam's future. Obviously, he's getting up there now, and he's been in the league for over 10 years, so. He's not a young player anymore, especially for an NFL player's career where their average career is like 3 seasons or whatnot, whatever it is, it's pretty low. I think that pretty much covers everything. Chemistry is everything with this team, and I definitely don't see them catching the Bills this year, and I think they're going to have a hard time catching the Dolphins just because the Dolphins were such an odd team last year, but they were still able to make the postseason. So,
I don't know, but I don't know if they're gonna have a hard time catching the Dolphins. I think if anything, that's who they got their best shot at, is catching up and overtaking the Dolphins for second.
Right.
It's the Bills for sure. They're not going to catch up to the Bills. No, even with all the signings they made.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So let me just say one thing about Cam Newton. Cam Newton should worry more about his performance on the field than his wardrobe off the field.
What?
I guess that was a bad joke.
Saw that on Barstool, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was a bad take. I mean, come on. That's part of Cam Newton's personality. His fashion's part of his personality.
He's always been.
It's not as if it's distracting on the field. What happened last season was, he just wasn't healthy. We saw that his shoulder just never, he looked good at the start of the season. Then he got COVID. And then obviously his shoulder just started kind of giving out. We'll see how it goes this season, if it can hold up, Also, it's like, to Dan's point, this dude is not a young player anymore. He's taken a lot of punishment with his style, but he is a former NFL MVP. He's been to a Super Bowl before. He's done everything you could possibly do in the NFL. Like he deserves a shot to at least be the starter. Now, the thing is I was talking to Kirby, obviously before we got on here, is I think, it's very possible that, Cam might have lost the starting job though, because of this, COVID misunderstanding, because the thing is what's the best, the best ability is availability. And the problem is what happens during the season. Obviously it's clear Cam isn't, vaccinated, or else this wouldn't be an issue. What happens if, there's another misunderstanding, or, Cam has to go into COVID protocols? Well, I don't know if Mac Jones is vaccinated, but, is Mac Jones more reliable? Bill Belichick is going to go for that. He wants somebody who's going to be available no matter what. He's not going to have to worry, am I going to have to put in this week because he's not going to be here? And again, Mac Jones really fits, obviously, the Tom Brady mold.
I was going to say that.
Where he does a lot of things that, Tom Brady does. I mean, obviously not to the same level as Tom Brady, but again, he's got that potential, I guess you could say.
Right.
I mean, to me, I would go with Mac Jones. I mean, you're going to eventually move over to him. There's a reason why you drafted him in the first round. The Patriots never draft a quarterback in the first round. Hell, when they drafted Garoppolo, that wasn't until the second round, if I remember correctly. So it's of course, Brady, infamously was pick 199. I mean, they don't draft quarterbacks that high unless Belichick really believes in him. So, I mean, they're going to eventually make the switch anyways. They did also just trade Sony Michel to the Rams.
Right.
I thought that was a very interesting move.
Well, I mean, Sony Michel just never really panned out on the Patriots. He just never did. He was fit. I mean, hell, you can even play with him on Madden. He's not that good. I mean, Brady never really trusted him. He never really, I don't think him and Cam really had great chemistry either, and I just think that they were ready to move on from him. And obviously, they signed the two tight ends. I think they're trying to go back to that system that they were in back when they had Gronk and Hernandez. Oof. We know all about that, but obviously that was a very dangerous scheme, and they had a lot of success with it. I think they want to go back to that. So, and like we were talking about the defense. I mean, their defense is stacked. I mean, obviously a lot of them opted out last season. Dante Hightower, they're pretty much the quarterback of the defense, did not play, and obviously, who knows what's going on with Gilmore, if he's going to stay or not. I guess we haven't heard anything, so I guess the plan is he's going to stay, but obviously he could be traded also at some point. But I mean, at this point, he's on the Patriots. So, I mean, that defense is going to be loaded.
Yeah. I don't really think I have much to add to that, but I mean,
perfectly said. And great point about the defense too, because
absolutely,
I completely forgotten how many players opted out.
It was a lot.
It's been like an eon ago now, so I forgot about a lot of that stuff. But yeah, that'll definitely make a big difference for them. So, yeah, I think. So, do you think Mac Jones starts week 1, Carlos, or do you think it's a couple weeks?
So, if I was running it, I would probably go Cam Newton week 1.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll just see how Cam rebounds from this. We'll see, because like you said, like I'm hearing the same things too. Like I'm hearing Mac Jones is, from every show that I listen to and stuff like that. Like I'm hearing, there's a lot of hype behind Mac Jones right now. And obviously we saw him in the preseason, and like him and Cam like kind of went toe to toe in the preseason. And obviously Mac Jones had the lesser weapons too.
Yeah.
And he looked pretty good. So, I mean, Mac Jones is inevitable. He's going to eventually be the starter for the New England Patriots. It's just a matter of when, not if. I don't think it's going to be week 1. I think they're going to go Cam Newton week 1. They're going to let Cam go at least the first quarter of the season, see where they're at. And if they feel like they'll do better with Mac Jones, then they'll switch over to Mac Jones.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I can agree with that too, because if Cam isn't producing the way Bill wants, then he's going to make the move. He's going to, if Cam isn't performing the way Bill wants week 1, I'm not surprised if he pulls in for Mac Jones. Then it just depends on if Cam Newton's production declines and when.
Bill Belichick's not that kind of guy, though. I think he lets it play out, and he's, I think 3 to 4 weeks is a safe bet, but I think he gets a game plan in place before he just pulls someone out, during a game or whatnot.
Yeah.
And benches them.
Well, I mean, I'm positive. I mean, with the Patriots, they're always ready for anything. I mean, they practice. I mean, that's how they go. They never have the same game plan going in each week.
True.
But, another thing that we're forgetting to mention is Bill, obviously sat home last postseason, and he watched Tom Brady win a Super Bowl without him. And obviously now there are questions of who was the Patriots dynasty legacy, mostly. Like, who was responsible for it? Was it Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick? And obviously now Tom Brady has the advantage in that argument because he went and won a Super Bowl without him. So, Bill Belichick is itching to reclaim like that. Like, it was that the reason why the Patriots were successful for all that, the past 20 years was because of him. He definitely wants that credit. So, he's going to go all out this season. And I just don't think there's any I don't think Bill Belichick is going to let this team not make the playoffs at least this season. Now, will they make the Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they have the team for that yet. But I think he's definitely going to make a push to, make at least the playoffs and possibly the divisional round, if I had to guess.
Imagine 3 out of the 4 teams in this division making the playoffs. That would be, I mean, I could see it. I could definitely see it. I think this is one of those divisions where it's very possible to have 3 out of 4 teams make the playoffs. It's that deep of a division. So, well, almost. We'll get to the last team here in a sec, but that was really well said. Really well said, Carlos. I mean, I hadn't even thought of that, but that's a really solid point. Like, now the talent differential on both rosters was, I mean, you're talking about what Bill Belichick had. It was amazing. Bill Belichick went 7-9 with that roster he had. It was amazing. He was able to win 7 games, I think. And of course, Brady had the best of the best, but one of the best rosters, the best defense. So, that definitely is a mentality he probably has this year, and it's Bill Belichick. He's, you can't lose track of him. Essentially, he's always,
you can't count him out.
If he's still coaching, they're gonna find a way. So that's just how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you both. So, moving on to the last team in this division, the New York Jets, who went 2-14.
That's what I was about. I was gonna make a fart sound effect too.
I mean, really, I don't know what there is to say about this Jets team. Obviously, they hired Robert Saleh. He had a very successful career in San Francisco. They drafted Zach Wilson from BYU, but still,
I'm worried about him too.
I'm a little iffy about him.
I'm not sure how this Jets team is going to pan out. I think this is a multi-year rebuild, and my hopes are not high on the New York Jets, to say the least.
Well,
I mean, the New York Jets aren't high on themselves right now either.
Yeah. If you look what they did in free agency, they made a lot of moves. I mean, not as many as the Patriots, but they definitely changed that roster around a lot. They brought in LaMarcus Joyner, who's pretty solid. And then one of the other key names is Corey Davis, who's always been a solid receiver. Especially in fantasy football, he's always a good fantasy pickup. I think he's going to struggle this year with the struggles at offensive line that the Jets have. And, I put in parentheses of Zach Wilson, it seems to me like it's going to be Joe Burrow 2.0. I just have that feeling. And he's not as talented as Joe Burrow either. So, not even close. So I think Robert Saleh is a good coach. I think that's the one thing they have going for him. I think they made the right move hiring him. They're going to struggle this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have a ton of question marks, and rebuild is on their mind right now more than anything else. I don't think I have anything else to say. I just especially with how good the other three teams are, how consistent the other three teams are ahead of them. The other one of them is really going to have to slip up for the Jets to not finish last, I think, and it's going to have to be like an epic meltdown but by either the Dolphins or Pats. So
I don't think any of these teams could possibly have a meltdown that could make them worse than the Jets.
Yeah,
I mean,
you say that, but COVID, you could forfeit essentially. So
but that's like one game here. I mean, let's be honest, the Jets aren't going to win a lot of games this season.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jets know that this season basically is not going to count towards Robert Saleh's tenure as the coach. They know themselves that this team doesn't have the depth, is lacking in a lot of talent. There's not really a lot of talent on this team.
No veteran leadership.
Yeah. And just like they know also, to the coaching sense. Yeah. Like Saleh is going to be a great coach. They also brought in Matt LaFleur's brother, to be the offensive coordinator. And
Mike,
obviously,
right?
Yes.
Very clever name.
Yeah, and a great naming on the parents front. Congratulations to them. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Zach Wilson. We talked about it a lot during our draft coverage. I never really understood the hype on Zach Wilson per se. Like, I understand like he's a very creative player, but he really realistically only had one great season at BYU, but he didn't play anybody. And the one team they did play was, Coastal Carolina?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Coastal Carolina, they lost.
Yep.
It's not like you're playing, in Alabama or something like that. You're playing a team that, ultimately never has a shot at making the college football playoff. And you couldn't even win that. And obviously that was kind of a last minute game because of COVID. They were able to schedule that. But, ultimately, like, why did they draft him? Oh, because he can make certain throws that Patrick Mahomes can make. I don't like that everybody's trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a one-of-a-kind guy. And on top of that, he was mentored by some of the best, possible mentors, in the game, obviously, and Andy Reid, and he had Alex Smith and all that. And what I'm scared for Zach Wilson is, he's not going to have, obviously, like we said, Robert Saleh is going to be a great coach. The LaFleur brothers is going to be a good coordinator. They'll get Zach Wilson where he needs to be. But the problem is like you said, Dan, their offensive line is atrocious, and it's going to be there. And with the way that Zach Wilson plays, and he's not a big guy either. It's not like he's,
exactly.
He's not a Josh Allen. He's a pretty small guy.
Counts on throwing on the run a lot of times.
Yeah, he'll be throwing, but like the problem is he's going to be on the run a lot, and he's going to be getting hit a lot, and I don't know how well his body's going to be able to take that type of punishment. So that'll be scary. I mean, I think we all can agree the Jets are probably going to be in the running for the worst record in the league this year.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't disagree either.
They're one of those organizations that, they're bad. Their front office is just bad, and it has been bad for
a while.
For even when they had that one year where they made the AFC Championship game, I still think really, I just don't think they're that great of a franchise in general. Even if you go back to, the Joe Namath, era, his career stats are, this is sort of random, but his career stats really aren't that impressive if you compare them against other Hall of Famers.
They've always been that second team in New York. There's always, they're the New York Mets, basically.
Yeah.
You got the Yankees, and then you got the Mets, and then you got the Giants, who have won 2 Super Bowls recently within the past 20 years. And then you got the Jets, who haven't won anything
They're there.
since Namath. Hell, they did, like you said, the only time is, obviously they made the AFC Championship game with, Sanchez, but Sanchez, that was like, that was like a flash in the pan. That wasn't anything, spectacular. Like, they had a great defense, but their offense was, all right, I guess. But I mean,
they did what they had to do. They weren't anything flashy, for sure.
And then obviously we saw how quickly that crumbled
when they went up against Brady. I think, was it Brady?
Yeah, it was the Patriots.
It was either the Colts or Patriots that destroyed.
No. For that year that they went to the Super Bowl, or no, when they went to the championship game, they lost to the Steelers.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it was the Steelers Cardinals in the Super Bowl, right? Or was that the year they played?
No, that was the year they played Green Bay, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That's right. It's coming back to me now.
Let me throw this out there.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Let's do an over under, if you will.
Okay.
Over under 6 years until the Jets make the playoffs again.
Under.
Yeah, I'd say under.
I'll go under.
Under.
Even, I think, they obviously there's an extra wild card spot now. So, if they just have 1 year where they do decent, they have a chance to make it in.
So we think this Jets team will not have a long rebuild.
Well, no, I think that if they just follow obviously Robert Saleh had to have presented a plan for this franchise, right? They wouldn't have just hired him just to hire him. Mm-hmm. If they follow his plan, and I like we all said, we believe he's going to be good. I believe if they follow his plan, they build this team correctly, they follow the model of the Buffalo Bills, and understand that the success is going to come. They're basically investing now for success later. Like, it's not going to be next year we're going to be like the top dog in this division. They got to understand that, one, they're in a competitive division as it is.
Yeah.
So they'll always be jockeying. We can all agree Buffalo's probably going to be the creme of the creme of this division for the foreseeable future. But there's obviously a void there for second place because the Patriots are no longer really the Patriots. The Dolphins obviously have some questions, and we know the Dolphins will be up and down here and there. 1 year they may be good, 1 year they may be bad. There's an opening there for the Jets to sneak into the playoffs, every now and again. But they need to stay the course, basically, and then they'll I feel like ultimately, if they follow Robert Saleh, I think he'll lead them to the promised land.
I can agree with that. I feel like Saleh did really great in San Francisco, and I feel like he will be a great head coach to help this team rebuild and, like you just said, Carlos, get back to the promised land.
And, and he seems to be a great motivator, and that's a huge thing when you have especially young players and guys who probably aren't going to mesh well to begin with. This team is sort of a duct tape kind of franchise, kind of team right now. So it takes a strong leader to sort of bring that sort of, I say sort of like a lot, and I say like a lot, to bring them together. It takes an emotional leader, and it takes someone who has that sort of skill. And I think Robert Saleh, that's why he's the perfect man for the job. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that about wraps it up for the Jets. Not too much more to add there. But, I mean, I think we can all agree the Bills pretty much have this division locked up unless something tragic happens, which I don't think could happen.
Well, I mean, obviously the tragic thing would be, like, let's say Josh Allen, God forbid, gets, injured. But I feel like they made the smart move in signing Mitchell Trubisky, to be honest. I feel like Mitchell Trubisky fits very well with this offense. And I feel like obviously they have a more competent coaching staff than they did in Chicago. So I feel like even if they lose Josh Allen, I feel like they're they'll be in good shape to, with a good backup. I feel like, Trubisky will hold. I mean, I still think he's not that great, but I think he'll be able to hold it until maybe Josh Allen comes back, or to lead him at least somewhat in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that.
All right. You're listening to the three-man booth here on the Kirby on Sports podcast. We just recapped the AFC East. Coming up next, we'll break down the last and final division in our
event of the evening.
The main event, the last division preview we have on our list, the NFC East, also known as the NFC Least. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you about Regroup Building Services. If you're looking to get your home remodeled, any part of your home, bathroom, kitchen, want to get a deck built, anything like that, Regroup Building Services can just about do everything. And take it from me, because they came in and they remodeled my family's kitchen, and they do a great job. So if you're looking for any sort of home remodeling needs, deck work done, anything of that nature, reach out to my guy Sean Hibbard over at Regroup Building Services today. You can check them out on their website, www.regroupbuildingservices.com, where they do the honeydews that your honey don't. Make sure you tell them Josh sent you. For sports fans living in condominium and homeowners associations, as well as business professionals, when you need a reserve study, PM Plus Reserves has been in business since 1990. Their studies are accurate and easy to understand. Check them out when your association needs a study. www.pmplusreserves.com. You can also contact them at 703-803-8436. Once again, www.pmplusreserves.com. Is it finally time to upgrade your home's interior? How about with an authentic farm table made locally from recycled barnwood? Shenandoah Primitives, based right here in Winchester, Virginia, makes farm tables, benches, tables, coffee tables, and a long list of other items for your home decorating needs. At Shenandoah Primitives, function and style are combined for great furniture that will last generations. If you're interested in combining the industrial look of metal with wood, or considering something incredibly unique with a live edge, Shenandoah Primitives turns those ideas into reality. Thinking about a mirror, wine rack, or other accent piece for your home, Shenandoah Primitives can assist with that as well. As a local small business, Shenandoah Primitives is happy to work with each client for a custom design or schedule an appointment to come out and view current inventory. Local, high-quality, handmade items can be found at Shenandoah Primitives. Find us on Facebook and Instagram, or visit us at www.shenandoahprimitives.com. Once again, that's www.shenandoahprimitives.com.
Hey, sports fans. Thank you for listening to and supporting the Kirby on Sports podcast with founder and host Josh Kirby, along with lead contributor Dan Dembski. Like, subscribe, and give them a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast from. My name is Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. Our company helps leaders build engaged and productive teams. Exclusively for listeners of the Kirby on Sports podcast, you can take an opportunity to discover your primary communication style and learn more about effective communication with others. Text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free copy of the Working From Home Communication Assessment, where you'll learn your primary communication style, how to better communicate with others not like you, and tips on working remotely based on your personal communication style. 10 minutes, tons of resources, learn about yourself and your team. Again, text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free assessment report today. I'm Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, where we help you and your team be more engaged and productive by understanding each other better. Back to you, Josh.
All right, welcome back. The three-man booth here on the Kirby on Sports podcast. I'm joined by Dan Dembski and the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez.
I need a cooler nickname. It just occurred to me. Lead contributor sucks.
That's so professional. Like he's got a professional title, and then I got a nickname.
Yeah,
we're a scrappy bunch.
There are times and places we can talk about this. I mean,
are there? Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's something I can put into consideration. I can put it under advisement.
Don't call me Double D. I've heard that too much. I'm tired of hearing that.
Double D.
Double D.
Or Dan the Man, or let's get back. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we can figure out something for Dan.
I pulled us away.
Yeah, we can figure something out at a later date.
The weapon.
The weapon, damn Dembski. Oh, I love it. That's what it is. The weapon.
Oh man, the machine.
The machine.
Gentlemen.
I think Bert Kreischer has that one on.
Yeah, it's a shame.
On lock.
I think this is going to be the most unique kind of division preview, the NFC East. They were known last year.
Kirby? Why? Why is that? Why is it going to be unique?
Because
your team stinks. That's why. How about them Cowboys?
Your team wasn't much better, Carlos.
Actually, your team was worse last year. Is this how it's going to go? Are we going to recap it?
My team was.
Are we going to recap it, or are you just going to trash talk? Or are we just trash talking teams?
No, we have
recap
to
first, and then
we have to recap. We have to recap.
Okay, well, we have to recap.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do it. We got to start with your team since they won the division last year.
Yes, they did win the division
because somebody had to win it, even though everybody wanted to lose it.
I mean, shall I start off here with the Washington football team, or would you all like to go first? Here, you all go first. Talk about the Washington football team. Then
I feel like you should go first. This is
you
your
should.
show.
No.
You kind of set the tone.
Save the best for last.
Piss off, Kirby. Fucking go.
Save the best for last, Carlos. I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so save me for last. So then you save me for last. Go.
All right, Dan, go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, the one positive thing you could say that this team had last year is a great defense. I mean, they were like number 4 in the NFL. Of course, led by rookie Chase Young, who was fantastic.
Animal. He's an animal.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to have the same sort of production this year he had last year. It just is. It's hard to do that on the defensive side year after year after year. So, but that entire defense was really, really good. So that was really what kept them in games and helped them maintain leads when they had leads, which I'm not going to say how often that was, but the offense was very much holding them back. And this, this whole idea of, Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen there towards the end of the season. They had Taylor Heineke play, Alex Smith. It was just a mess.
Dwayne Haskins. No
quarterback played really well on the stat sheet except for Kyle Allen, and he started 4 games last year. So, that's their biggest issue, I think, right now. And obviously, I think their quarterback situation this upcoming season is not ideal either. So, I know Kirby's going to touch on that, but another, a thing about their offense I think they have going for them is the great play of Logan Thomas, former quarterback converted to tight end, had a fantastic season last year. He had, oh my God, I can't even read this.
He deserved that extension, by the way.
Yeah, man. 6
hands down.
6 receiving touchdowns last year for Logan Thomas. And he also threw a pass. Yeah, 1 for 1.
Can I throw out that
pretty
pass
damn good
was
QBR
against Dallas on Thanksgiving?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Cool.
I think they have a I think they have a couple pieces on offense. I think their defense, to me, Terry McLaurin, obviously pretty damn good player, but was kind of, I think they overused him last year way too much because they didn't really have anybody else, to be honest.
I mean, it was just him and Logan Thomas. That was it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's really all I have. I think the offense, there's a lot of question marks, and obviously that still stands. And the running game, I mean, was atrocious last year. So that's got to get a lot better this year if they're gonna win this division again. And that offensive line is, can't get much worse. I don't know. I think the defense is going to be just as good as advertised as they were last year. But, I think the offense, I just think there's a lot of question marks, and rightfully so. I think they have a lot of things to address and prove that, they have improved that offense, because 25th in the league is not going to cut it. And it's not going to win this division again. I think this division is going to be, it needs to be a lot better, but I think it will be naturally. There was just a lot of inconsistency last year. So I think it's going to be better.
You can't get any worse than when your division, than a piece of shit. So this whole division was a piece of shit.
When a team with a losing record makes the playoffs, yeah. I mean, it's a dark day.
Yeah, but, and for Kirby, it's a big deal because they still won a division with a losing record.
And they almost beat Tampa Bay. You never let us live that down.
They did give Tampa Bay a run for their money.
Yeah. I mean, they absolutely did.
Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So
yes, that is true.
Doesn't count in football. But yeah, I mean, that's all I have. I think the defense is going to be fantastic again this year. I'm excited to see what Ron Rivera is able to do. Once again, as head coach, I think he's a great coach. He's got a lot to work with on the defensive side, which, him himself being a linebacker in the National Football League must make him smile. It's the offense, I think, that has a ton of questions, a lot of issues that I think they need to, that they've had to work on in the offseason, and we'll see, what they're able to accomplish this upcoming season.
So I guess I'll go real quick because I'll make my comments real brief. That way Kirby can go on his long rant as to why the Washington football team is the greatest team in the NFL.
14-3.
Shit. So real quick, obviously we do have to give our props to the Washington football team last season, because they did win the division. And they wanted it in exciting fashion, to be completely honest, because, obviously beating the Steelers and then just making that run. Yep. And then the last week of the season, who did they, the Eagles kind of threw in the towel at the end, but I mean, they won the division. And obviously the Giants being pissed about that was hilarious, but we'll get to the Giants later.
And then Dan's rant on Joe Judge and the Giants, that was hilarious too.
Oh yeah.
Dan's got his legendary rants, man.
I completely forgot about that rant, man.
Oh man, that rant was hilarious.
Yeah, it was basically a grow up, what the hell are you doing sort of rant, if I recall correctly.
It was one of the greatest rants of all time. So obviously the big thing that emerged last season was the potential and promise that this defense showed. That's where the strength of this team really is right now, is in that defense. It's more specifically the defensive line. Obviously we get Chase Young, Marquez Sweat. Is it Marquez or Montez?
Montez.
That's what I thought. Montez Sweat. They're just menaces. Like they're just in your face all the time. I mean, and to Dan's point, like they gave Tampa Bay a run for their money, So now that brings us to this season. Obviously, the Dwayne Haskins experiment, Kirby's favorite quarterback, failed, but he's still rooting for him.
Go Steelers.
Yeah, he's still rooting for him. Obviously Alex Smith has retired because he could barely move last season.
Yeah, it was sad.
He got this team to a point where they could win the division, and then they took it from there. And then obviously now you're stuck. Kyle Allen obviously got hurt last season, and is a Ron Rivera guy.
Nasty leg whip.
Yeah. So he is Ron Rivera's guy. So he's got a running to become the starter this year. We don't know yet. I mean, and then here's where obviously I was saying Washington should have drafted Kyle Trask, at least in the second round. I thought that they should have got him and had him be the future quarterback. I thought that would have been a solid pick.
Yeah.
That
was dumb.
But, and obviously we know who Kirby's thoughts. Kirby was totally against it. He was like, they haven't shown that they can develop a young quarterback.
They've never been able to develop a young quarterback. That much is obvious. But also,
but they never had a competent coaching.
They haven't been able to sign old. They haven't been able to sign old geezers and make them good quarterbacks either. So
the problem is you're not going to really get a high-profile quarterback like a Tom Brady to come to Washington.
No.
The team with no name, with the shitty facilities. I mean, goddamn, I was so underwhelmed when I drove by that. I was like, really? That's it? That's it?
Okay, so you just drove by their facility and you made that analogy just by driving by.
No. I mean, I'm correlating the fact
comparing
that
it to
they
the
couldn't
Cowboys,
even get.
So of course,
let's be honest. You
poor.
Go to a team. You're okay. Let's say for instance, let's throw when Peyton Manning was a free agent, right? And he took his tours of team facilities and stuff like that, visiting teams and stuff like that. Let's say he goes to the Cowboys and to Washington. Which one is going to impress him more?
I'd probably say Dallas, though.
We all know. I mean, Dallas has Dallas has the most money of any team by far.
But still, why are you trashing?
Okay, but Washington is the fifth most profitable franchise.
Yeah, it's Dan Snyder just pocketing the money. We all know
this. That's what I'm saying. You guys have the most. Okay, you have an incompetent owner. I mean, there's so many reasons why your team stinks. Okay, you guys signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is a lower mid-tier quarterback.
I just don't understand why you're trashing their practice facility
because the facilities
provide.
Yeah.
Because Kirby, I could literally drive in there. Like there was no it seems like there's no security gate. There's no little big thing being like, this is where the Washington football team.
This is where they
practice. This is where they are.
Yeah.
Again, when you watch the Hard Knock episodes and you see what the Cowboys did with their facility, it is extraordinary what they did. And then there's the Washington football team. It's literally a high school practice field, essentially. That's what it is. It's nothing. This franchise is mediocre. It upsets me.
No,
but back to my but enough of me trashing it because I'm oh, by the way, your stadium stinks too. I hate FedEx.
I can agree with that.
FedEx Field's a dump.
The
fans deserve so much better. Honestly.
So much better. And I have seen the mock-ups
what do you say there,
the stadiums.
Dan? Repeat that, Dan.
The fans deserve so much better.
Yeah. Yes. FedEx Field. There needs to be an upgrade. I'm not sure if it's going to happen.
They need to move out of FedEx Field. They need to move out of FedEx Field. They have mocked. There have been. I just said
they needed an upgrade.
Okay,
they should
chill out.
They should.
I'm
put the stadium
with you.
closer to DC too, and make it easier to get to because that stadium is a pain in the ass to get to. It's literally in the middle of nowhere.
It's the worst stadium. Like they still have seating that's under the upper deck, which is the worst place to sit. Like they have seats behind columns. Like what are we doing here?
Get a ticket right behind the column.
I saw it. Like last time I was there, I saw it. I was like, why the fuck is there a seat behind a column? Like, how does this make sense? Furthermore, I mean, I've seen mock-ups of stadiums that like they've proposed and stuff that would be like at like the National Harbor or whatever.
That'd be perfect.
Looks pretty cool. I'd be like, yo, that is dope. What are we?
National Harbor is easier to get to, also.
Yeah.
So
it would be easier to get out of too.
They said no. Mm-hmm. They said no to it.
Well, this is a fun fact. The original or the owner who owned the team when they built that stadium was what was the guy's name?
Jack Cook.
Yeah, the town didn't have a name, and he named it after his son. They ended up changing the name to Landover or whatever later on, but it was called like I forget the name of it was like called Rajan, Maryland, which is like his son's. It was like his name and his son's. It was some weird shit, but the town didn't have a name. It wasn't a real place, so he named it after like he and his son, and then they changed it to Landover, which it's totally a Washington owner thing to do. So it's the fans deserve better. I mean, the fans just in general, Dan Snyder treats the fans like shit. Like the stadium is terrible. It's in a terrible location. The fans come out to games still and in pretty impressive numbers, I have to say, for a team that really hasn't done much, and for an owner that doesn't care about the team. I think the fans deserve a lot better. So
here's the thing that upsets me most about that is we've seen it. We saw it with the Capitals. We saw it with the Nationals. We see when the team is successful, we see how crazy the fan base is here, like locally
in this area.
And that's ultimately, I mean, Washington, they're insufferable, but they deserve better.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that if they would put out just a successful product, they would accommodate the fans better and stuff like that. Like it would be one of the best fan bases, one of the best places to experience a game, to play for, to play for the team, because the fan base will be so passionate and so supportive of you. And for some reason, Dan Snyder doesn't want to invest in that. Now, obviously, he's not even controlling the team right now because he's giving it to his wife. But I mean, to put my thoughts to bed, basically, and to let Kirby take on and go on his rant as to why Washington's going to win the Super Bowl this year, which they're not. But we'll let him live in that fantasy. What the thing that concerns me most about this team is their unwillingness to really take the vaccine. A lot of players aren't vaccinated, and it's concerning to Ron Rivera because obviously he's a former cancer patient. He's a cancer survivor. So and even that plea didn't seem to really work. Him saying hey, if I could get seriously sick if I catch it. That concerns me. The other thing is again, the instability at quarterback right now. You guys signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ooh, that was a sexy signing, I guess. Taylor Heineke. Okay, he had one good game against Tampa Bay, but is he really a starter? This was a guy who wasn't even on.
Yeah.
What was he? The COVID quarterback for this team for a while.
Yeah. He wasn't even on the roster.
Kyle Allen.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Washington had a COVID quarterback.
Yeah, after the whole thing that happened with Denver. But yeah, Kyle Allen, we've seen what he can do. He's not a guy that's going to take you to a Super Bowl. To me, ultimately, what's going to happen is you guys are going to ultimately have to draft a quarterback. It's going to have to happen because you guys aren't bringing a free agent. A big name free agent. They're not coming to Washington with the shitty facilities and the terrible stadium and crappy ownership and no team name.
I think that would help them a lot. Is finally.
Well, what was it? Next year it's happening.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope it's a good name too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that defense is going to keep them in games this season. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Same as
I'm just worried about the offense because, like Dan said, to Dan's point, the running game wasn't there last season. Now, who got injured last year that's coming back this year?
Yeah, was it Barber or Gibson? Which one of those guys? Come on, Kirby.
Ooh, Gibson played. It was Barber. Yeah, Barber got injured.
Wasn't he the kid from LSU or something like that?
I believe so. It was, but J.D. McKissick, I think, took most of his reps. Also,
who the hell is that? I know who that is.
From the Lions.
Oh no, I remember who he is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I remember who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great running back there, wasn't he?
Hey, isn't Alfred Morris available again?
Yes, he made.
He was good for a year.
He was good. He was good for Washington.
Yeah,
he was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to wrap this up in a bow, the defense is going to keep them in games. The offense is going to be their detriment this season. I think that they will at least. I think they're going to at least finish above. I mean, you kind of have to finish above 500. They're at least going to be.
It's
10
impossible
and 7,
to finish 500. You can finish above
that's
or
a shame.
below.
I missed that already.
They can't do Jason Garrett things anymore. They can't go 8-8 every year and somehow be the coach. For 10 years.
That's amazing.
So long story short, I mean, Washington, there are a lot of question marks in this division. So like, I can't necessarily say they're not going to win the division because they can very much win the division again. But I would say that their chances of repeating are not high.
Well, I'd say like 30%, 35% that they repeat again, honestly. Maybe a little higher. Maybe the top end's a little higher, maybe 45%. But
yeah, with that being said,
this division is strange to say the least. So
all right, Kirby.
You never know. Rant
Release
time.
the hounds. Release the hounds.
I would say 40 to 45% this Washington football team makes it back to the playoffs. Yes, their defense improved last year, and I don't think they will skip a step from last year to this year. And I will agree that the quarterback situation is not the best, but you have Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick, a guy that has been in this league for Lord knows how long, he has so much experience that he can give these younger quarterbacks. I mean, who knows how they will translate it if they will go out and tear it up for Washington. In years past, that has not worked. But, where to start with this? I feel like Fitzpatrick being in Washington helps learning-wise. And, playing-wise, still after seeing in Miami that whole quarterback switcheroo and stuff, looking at Washington, can Ryan Fitzpatrick go out and be successful? He can. Will it happen? I'm not so sure. The quarterback room is going to be very unique. In Taylor Heineke, if Ron thinks he's the best look for this Washington football team, he only played in the wild card, and they only lost by 8 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the wild card. You look at Kyle Allen, he had a few good games before he got injured. I will go out and say, because I'm assuming as we're recording that Fitzpatrick will eventually get the starting nod. And if he doesn't work out, I feel like Ron's going to get a Kyle Allen, because Kyle Allen played with Ron Rivera in Carolina. And I feel like, I'm going to say this again, I feel like this quarterback room is very iffy. And can Fitzpatrick ride out a whole season, or is it going to be another quarterback carousel in some way, shape, or form? But I'm hoping that's not the case, but still there's a lot of uncertainty that I cannot say for sure. The offensive line, I hate giving analysis after watching preseason games, but I feel like the offensive line needs to improve a little bit more to protect Fitzpatrick or whoever will be under center for the Washington football team. I feel like that's a key. You got to protect the quarterback. The running backs, I must say, watching preseason, seeing Jarrett Patterson play, he looked pretty darn good. But once again, that's just preseason, folks. I'm not putting too much stock into anything I see during the preseason. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens in the regular season. But you look at the defense, and I'm going to agree with Carlos here. The defense looks great, and they're really going to help Washington out. And the offense just has to step up. And I do like the weapons that are there at wide receiver. They picked up Diami Brown wide receiver from North Carolina. They signed Logan Thomas to an extension. They have Terry McLaurin out there. They signed Curtis Samuel. I think he's on the PUP or COVID list for some reason, but I think he should be back by the time the season starts. So they have added weapons, but still, it comes down to consistency at the quarterback position. And I feel like it's going to be a 45% chance this Washington football team repeats as division champions and makes it into the playoffs. Can they make it into the playoffs squeaking in? I give that a 50 to 45, maybe 30% chance. But I really do feel like this NFC East will change a little bit, but still, it's going to be anybody's game in this NFC East division, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I mean, there's not much left to say after that.
Yeah, that was a great analysis.
Yeah.
Almost like they're your favorite team or something. You would guess.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly and truthfully, I mean, looking at this Washington football team, they can easily go out and dominate. But once again, it's the Washington football team. And
who are they dominating?
The Jets?
No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. They could easily go out.
What's not to understand about domination?
I'm saying this team, everybody might think they're going to go out and tear it up, but at the same time, there's people like me, realists,
Josh
who
Kirby.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Explain your point, though. I'm still a little lost.
Yeah, most of the fans.
We cut you off. Sorry about that.
So, like most of the fans,
as per usual.
I think after last season, we got really hyped that we won the division. And I feel like fans are riding another high, which I used to do. And going into the season, like, oh, Washington's going to tear it up, win the Super Bowl. We're going all the way. I'm not thinking like that. I mean, this team, it's just going to be a weird season. It's going to be very weird.
I know why you're not thinking like that. It's because we won't let you think like that.
No, it's not that. It's just a weird season.
It's not realistic. Yeah, it's not realistic.
It's not realistic whatsoever.
I mean, we'll get to my Cowboys, but it's the same thing with my Cowboys. You know, and some of the fan base is just too unrealistic with our expectations, and they think that we're gonna win the Super Bowl this year. I'm like, we'll get to the Cowboys, but
I mean, this division, hands down, it's gonna be a very weird division yet again. Can we all agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Possibly, we'll see.
All right, let's move on to the Giants. This Giants team,
I got nothing.
I picked.
I think my rant still stands. So.
I mean, I picked before. I mean, the Giants beat the Washington football team twice. They looked like a very successful team.
Once again, that's such a huge, feat.
Accomplishment.
In my opinion, I saw the Giants going out and looking pretty good. Still, Daniel Jones got injured, but still, I thought this Giants team was going to make pushes to make it to first place in the NFC East. But you hear all this stuff about the players not backing Joe Judge, fights at practice, all this and all that. And I feel like, what's this Giants team going to look like now?
I mean, you start with Daniel Jones. Like, he was the wrong pick from the beginning. First of all, he was taken way too high in that draft. Second of all, he never should have been drafted. Outside of above the fifth round, he to me he wasn't that great. Yeah, he wasn't that great.
He's another Mitchell
college.
Trubisky. They played 3 miles down the road from each other.
Yeah, he wasn't that great in college, and I don't even think he was as good as Mitchell Trubisky, to be honest. Duke had a couple moments, but it's Duke. They're not known for their football. So no. I think that's been their issue since the beginning, and Yeah, Joe Judge to me, I just don't see him lasting much longer there. I think he could honestly be gone by midseason if things start bad for the Giants, which honestly they could. I think I see the Giants and Eagles in a similar position in this division this year where they're kind of fighting for the bottom, I think.
Yeah.
So,
I think
I don't have a lot to add, you know. I think they, you know, their defense is average. But you know, they're not gonna just win with your defense. You have to have consistency on the offensive side of the ball too. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in them this year. But again, this division's odd, and you know, these teams are going to beat up on each other, and you know, they could pull off some upset wins. I'm not going to put that past them, but yeah, I don't have a ton to say about the Giants. I think they're going to be underwhelming is the key phrase for me for them this year.
But what about all this drama, though? Do you know any more about this drama than I do? Because I know, like, a lot of drama at practice and Joe Judge and whatnot, and that's a big thing when it comes.
Well, there was
to
the whole thing with Calvin Benjamin. He got cut, and he was mad that he got cut and said that Joe Judge wasn't the right guy for that team. But then a bunch of them actually came out in support of Joe Judge on Twitter, saying that, you know, that he doesn't know what he's talking about, that, you know, it wasn't their fault that he came in like 15 pounds overweight, you know.
Right, you can't have that.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, Calvin Benjamin just wasn't a professional and didn't come, you know, they wanted him at a certain weight coming into camp, and he didn't come in at that weight, so they had to cut him. The other thing was, obviously there was a huge fight at practice, and you know, Daniel Jones ended up at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah. Terrible look.
You know, Joe Judge was pissed, and you know, had them doing like doing like suicides basically for the rest of the practice, and then like screaming at them afterwards. I don't know. I mean, like, this team just
dysfunction.
It's not too you know, we've heard crazier stories than that, you know. I just feel like this team just doesn't have the right identity. And I feel like I agree with you, Dan. I feel like the problem was they should not have drafted Daniel Jones. I mean, who was up? I mean, who was in that draft that year? Wasn't that the same year Dwayne Haskins got drafted?
Yeah, it was. Well,
they could have picked Dwayne Haskins.
It was funny because one of my friends is a Giants fan, and my other friend was like, "Man, it'd be hilarious if like they drafted Daniel Jones, like just screwing around." And then, sure enough, they take Daniel Jones. I think that was their first round choice. So
yeah, it was just annoying because, like, to me, like, they could have. I mean, I don't even really remember who all else was left in that draft, to be honest.
It wasn't a very deep quarterback draft from what I remember. It was one of those years where it was a down year. Ones. Yeah, it was a down year for quarterbacks. Well, I can look that up real quick.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it just hurts your head talking about all these teams because of how bad this whole division was last year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Even my Washington football team, it just hurts my head because it's like, who knows how? I mean, can we even make a prediction at this point who will win this division?
I mean, we got to get through the rest of the division, but yeah, you know,
I feel like
I mean, I'm looking at the quarterbacks that were taken that year. It's not. I mean, Kyler Murray was the first round pick,
right?
You had Kyler Murray. Daniel Jones was the second quarterback. Then you
could have picked Dwayne Haskins. What if the Giants picked Dwayne Haskins? This might be a different story, but.
I mean, probably not, but you know, again, I know you're supportive of your guy.
Hey, thanks.
Drew Lock was taken in the second round. I mean, there was only 11 quarterbacks taken in this draft, and I don't really see any like names that like really stand out to me.
You had a Will Greer.
Will Greer, Carolina.
Ryan Finley.
Ryan Finley.
Backup. Jarrett Stidham. Yeah, he worked out well.
Yeah, there was not really a lot of quarterbacks. So, to me, they just should have just moved on. But, I mean, the thing is I think Eli Manning put, the recommendation in for Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones was, a big part of,
he looks like Eli Manning, too.
They look alike. They play alike. Yeah. And the thing is that, Daniel Jones is a little more mobile than Eli Manning was. But he's goofy mobile where he trips on himself when he's got nobody around.
I was just about to say that too.
Oh my God, nothing but
I just feel like he was the wrong pick. I don't really have a lot of faith, but they are getting Saquon Barkley back, who everybody keeps touting as a generational talent. I don't really see him as a generational. I see him as a good running back, but I don't think, I think him and Zeke are about at the same level. Like when Zeke plays at a high level, I think him and Saquon are about equal. But he's coming off of a knee injury, and it's been less than because he got hurt week 2. So it's been less than a year. So who knows how healthy he really is, because they always say that first year back after you tear your knee up, you're not fully back until your second year. So we don't know how healthy Saquon's going to be. They don't really have a ton of offensive weapons to throw to, really. I mean, I think they got Sterling Shepard still. I think he's their number 1. I think they got there's just nobody that really stands out, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. I feel like the Giants need to add more weapons or do something before free agents the trade deadline ends, or whatever they might do. I feel like, like you said, Carlos, nobody stands out, and there's not much.
Evan Ingram, I guess. They also signed Kyle Rudolph, so there's 2 good tight ends right there, I guess you could say. But ultimately, this team just
if there's no time to throw, it won't matter.
They don't have that difference maker, is what I'm trying to say. That guy who can single-handedly switch games. So to me, I think we're all in agreement. You said the Eagles and the Giants I think the Eagles are in a lesser spot than the Giants, in my opinion.
I can agree with that too.
But we'll get to them, I guess.
It's close to me. I don't know. They seem like a mess too. They're a little more they have more talent for sure, but I still think they're a mess of an organization. But yeah, we'll get to them.
Fair enough.
All right.
But, yeah, I don't got much left to say about the Giants. That's about it. I don't think they're going to win the division.
They're no giant, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the 6-10 Dallas Cowboys last season. Carlos, first and foremost, I need to know what's the deal. There's so many different stories about Dak Prescott.
Not healthy.
To go
you just have to watch Hard Knocks. You just have to watch Hard Knocks. You'll get all your answers there because he's a main part of Hard Knocks. So all these stories, you'll see what Dak is doing.
So is he good to go?
They're keeping him out of just precaution, not worry, nothing like that. It's precaution. They just they want him to be healthy for the start of the season, and they don't want to accidentally push his shoulder and re-injure it or hurt it even more than what it possibly is. He's going to play hurt this season, basically, it seems like, but they just want to mitigate it and not aggravate it to start the season and possibly lose him at some point in the season. It seems like it's just a strain in his shoulder. That's all it is. And they're just letting him, they got him on it. Well, now the story came out, he's not on a pitch count. But basically they just don't feel like it's worth the risk to play him in the preseason at all. But he'll be ready for week 1.
So, okay. That's what I was wondering, because I heard something about a week or two ago. There might be a chance that he might not be ready. And I'm like,
nah, he'll be ready for week 1.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clear that up. So my thoughts on Dallas, obviously Dak Prescott goes out a gruesome injury. Their defense was one of the worst, and Dallas fixes that by picking up Micah Parsons from Penn State. Yeah, Micah Parsons, he's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge whether that's gonna make their defense immediately.
Well, yeah, still, I mean, their defense has improved by way of the draft and free agency, in my opinion. I feel like if Dak Prescott can stay healthy and this defense improves a lot, Dallas is going to make a big stride for first place.
Wow, it's a bold prediction.
I could see that. I honestly could see that.
I don't disagree. And it goes back to Zeke too. Like, what Zeke are we going to see? Because last year, like we talked about this, like
yeah, that's true. I forgot to mention
he was definitely something wasn't right with him, and like he was just like he was going down at first contact. So like something was up with him last year. So maybe, hopefully, this season he can put the doubters to rest, because people kind of said last year, like, yeah, this is just who he is. He was like a 2-year, trick pony, I guess you'd say. I don't know. And, after that, it was just kind of like he's kind of a bust. So I think this is going to be a big year for Zeke. Like, he needs to show that he's back. And I'm not saying he has to lead the NFL in rushing, but he has to do a hell of a lot better than he did last year. He had one of the lowest, yard per carry numbers last year. So, and compared to how we expect him to play, it's just not going to cut it. That's gonna help Dak out a lot too. If they can run the football effectively, they won't have to, put the ball in Dak's hands all the time. So I think that's a big thing too, especially with him coming off an injury. You don't want him to be thrown at 40 to 45 times a game. It's just not ideal. So it's just going to depend on the situation. I think their offense is interesting to me, and yeah, the defense is kind of a mess for sure. So I think they're going to be better this year. But I do think Dallas has the most talent by far in this division, and they're the team that's shown more recently that they can have success in this division.
As a
no offense to Washington.
As a Washington fan,
full offense to Washington. Full offense.
As a Washington fan, I am scared if Dallas's defense is on paper what they are going to do on the field, because Micah Parsons, I mean, I watched him play at Penn State.
Pretty good.
I don't know how that's going to translate, but still, they have the talent there, and that scares me as a Washington fan.
And they look good. They needed help in the defensive backs, badly. So that was a big need as well. So yeah, I think they're the most talented team in this division. I still think they have a lot of questions. Obviously,
but not as many.
Not as many as any other team in this division. I don't think.
I mean, they got some big question marks.
Let's hear it, Carlos.
All right, Carlos, take it away.
I guess we're. I mean, all right. So oh man, now I know where Kirby is. Like, where do I start here? Let's just start with Dak, because obviously he's the big story. Obviously he's coming off of that traumatic injury, basically breaking his ankle completely. He was playing at a very high level last year, and we were still losing, but he was still playing lights out. But I mean, that was mostly attributed to the defense. My fear with Dak is, who knows how. We don't, like we said, he hasn't played at all this preseason, so we don't know how he's going to, come out looking week one. And week one, we have Tampa Bay, and they have a mean defensive front as it is, So I'm nervous about that. The offensive line was banged up a lot last season. They're all relatively healthy. We all should be good to go this season. So hopefully that helps. I think that was also a thing that was hurting Ezekiel Elliott, was the fact that, when he in his best years was when we had, that all-star lineup with, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, we had it was like those three guys, obviously Jason Witten was good at helping, on the line also to open up holes, and obviously, we had weapons with Des Bryant and, all that stuff.
That was a great team. It was a great team.
And then those were on Zeke's best, that was like on one of his best years. My concern is still with the defense. I feel like, yeah, Micah Parsons was a great pick, but it didn't help. Obviously, who Dallas really needed to get was Patrick Surtain out of Alabama, because we need help. With the defensive backfield. We don't have a lot. Obviously, we lost Byron Jones. We've lost. Who did we lose this past season? We lost another cornerback this past season, and now basically we're going with Diggs as our number one, basically. And then another thing is we had a horrible scheme last year, basically. We went from Rod Marinelli?
Rod Marinelli.
Yeah. We went from his defensive scheme where he runs like the Tampa 2 or whatever into this weird, I don't even know what the hell they were trying to run, but like basically like everybody was like out of position, with whoever the hell, I can't even remember who it was that Mike McCarthy brought in. And there's question marks on Mike McCarthy too.
True.
Like, he's only won one Super Bowl ever. And then ever since then, like, it's he's gotten close, but he could never get over the hump either. And yeah, he beat Dallas multiple times, but I mean, I would really put that more on Aaron Rodgers than Mike McCarthy. The other thing is, to Dan's point about the talent is, yeah, Dallas has the most talent, but we've always had the most talent in the division. It doesn't necessarily always translate.
True.
Dallas always feels like we're stacked. And every year, everybody goes, this could be the year. Goddamn, AJ Hawk last year on Pat McAfee's show picked Dallas to win the Super Bowl, and it just didn't happen. Like, we have all the pieces we need. It's just we need a guy to unlock their abilities. Now, obviously, offensively, we're stacked. You got Dak at quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott at running back, a pretty decent offensive line. It's not as great as it has been, but it's pretty decent. You got, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and then, of course, CeeDee Lamb, who is looking fantastic in camp this year. Is really, you see it in Hard Knocks. He's really learning a lot of things from Amari Cooper, and obviously we know how good Amari Cooper is. So I feel like,
pieces are there. The pieces are there, quite simply.
The pieces are there. Tight end. I think we're going back to Blake Jarwin, because he just can do things that that the other tight ends we have on the roster can't. I don't know. Like, to me, success for this team this year will be making the playoffs and, winning a playoff game. But obviously where this team needs to eventually get to is we need to start getting to at least the conference championship, because we can make the divisional round all we want. We've done that already. We haven't been to a conference championship since the 90s. We need to at least get there, and then we can start thinking about a Super Bowl. Right now, a Super Bowl is unrealistic, but I think if this team pans out, and I think getting Dan Quinn to be our defensive coordinator was a huge get for Dallas, because obviously he was the guy who really orchestrated Seattle's defense, during the Legion of Boom. I feel like if he can at least get this, get this defense to be competent at least, and the offense does what the offense does, Dallas will at least be 11-6, 12-5 is where I'm putting them at, if everything, works out, because we obviously have a lot of tough opponents on our schedule this year, starting off with Tampa Bay. And obviously we'll get wins, obviously, over the Eagles. I feel like we're going to beat the Giants. I feel like Washington will pose some problems, especially with their defense. But ultimately, I feel like if our defense just plays competent, we should be able to handle Washington's offense. So I think Dallas is definitely the favorite to win the division, but there are a lot of question marks on this team that will be answered very soon. So, that's about all I got. And now I'm like Kirby with Dallas. I'm a realist. I know for sure, like, we're not ready to win a Super Bowl yet. We still got some growing to do as a team. And we just need to start at least making the playoffs first and playing great consistent football before we can even think about making a run for the Lombardi.
Yeah, I bet you all thought I was going to say the Washington football team would make it to the Super Bowl.
No, but
I wouldn't put it past you.
Yes.
That would old
Kirby
Kirby would sure. Old Kirby would have yelled that for sure.
You got to be real here on these sports podcasts. It's like you got to give the listeners your honest opinion. And I think we projected
doesn't stop
that
a lot
well.
of people in sports media.
Yeah.
Is there really much we have to say about the Eagles? We all think they're going to suck, right? Do we really have to break down the Eagles?
Who is Nick Sirianni? I mean, I've never heard of the guy.
I don't know where he came from.
He came
Wasn't
from
he already
Indy.
a coordinator on? No, I don't know.
He came from Indy, but I know nothing about it.
Who cares? They're going to stink.
Jalen Hurts.
He's only been an offensive coordinator for 3 years too.
Huh.
With Indy.
I find a lot of questions in that head coaching change to Nick Sirianni. Or is that just me, or did you?
I just think that he was kind of like all they could really get. I don't think they could really get another coach because of just the uncertainty and turmoil that was happening in the Eagles with when Doug Peterson left.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it went back all the way to when the Eagles threw that game against Washington, Week 17.
For sure, because that's when Doug Peterson definitely lost the locker room. It seemed like he had already lost the locker room a long time ago before that, but I mean, throwing away that game was huge.
A game they should have won. Yeah.
You know, Jalen Hurts was pissed, you know, and I think Jalen Hurts has a lot of potential if he can pan out in the NFL. That remains to be seen.
Does Joe Flacco play this year at all? I think there's a chance he plays.
I agree.
Oh, Joe Flacco's on the Eagles. I forgot. Wow.
Yeah.
Is that your second favorite team now, Dan?
Look, I always have a special place for Joe Flacco in my heart, but
he won a Super Bowl. You can't knock that.
I want to see him do well anywhere he goes. I don't think he's going to play much, and I don't think he has much left in the tank at his age.
He's over the hill at this point.
Oh, for sure.
Like
he's more of like a mentor at this point, so which is cool with me. But yeah, I'll always have a special place for Joe Flacco in my heart.
I think we're all in agreement. The Eagles are trash this year.
Hey, they have Miles Sanders. Don't forget that.
I mean,
he's their best player. Hey, they did draft Devontae Smith, which I think is going to be interesting.
It'll be interesting, but we'll see how much his body develops because you know that is a big concern with his body. He's a very skinny kid, so
right.
We'll see how he handles getting smacked a few times in the NFL, and obviously he's still kind of grown. I mean, he is kind of on the older side. He was a 4-year a 4-year college player. It wasn't like so he's like 22 now. So I mean, how much more is his body really going to develop? We don't know, but
right.
We'll see. I mean, I thought it was a good pick. We'll see.
Well, you have Rick Lovato, who Tony Romo said was Demi Lovato's husband, which I think that was Tony Romo's first year announcing. I still remember that.
I'm pretty sure it was ultimately a joke, but it didn't land.
Jim was like, "Are you serious, Tony?" He's like, I'm kidding.
Think about it. We got 2 former Dallas quarterbacks on the number ones for all the number ones announcing teams for 2 networks.
Tony Romo's so good, man. He's just a natural. Troy
Aikman's pretty good too, but Troy Aikman's very monotone though.
Yeah, he is.
Whereas Tony Romo, you feel the enthusiasm. So
he's very emotional.
It's funny, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman always end up on America's Game of the Week, and Fox
they're the number 1 team.
Yeah, that's why.
No, Fox just loves to put the Dallas Cowboys on America's Game of the Week.
They are America's team. I mean,
let's be honest, they bring the ratings. You're gonna watch a Cowboy game.
Yeah, because if you love them or hate them,
primetime games.
Yeah, it's just very exciting watching Dallas play at 425 for some reason. On America's Game of the Week.
I don't know. I prefer him I'll tell you what. I hate watching him on Monday night. I don't like watching the Cowboys on Monday night.
Yeah, I don't like watching Monday Night Football either.
Yeah, me either.
You have to get up early the next day, and like if the game's close, your like heart's pounding, and then you can't go to sleep once the game's over. It's
not only that, ESPN's cover or like just their presentation of Monday Night Football just doesn't feel as good as it used to. It doesn't feel like Sunday Night Football. That always feels like a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Monday Night Football doesn't feel like a big deal anymore. Like it kind of feels like a burden nowadays.
Monday Night Football used to be a very big thing. I
mean,
they used to have like
they used to have John Madden now. No, did they have John Madden now, Michaels?
Yep, they
Monday
did.
Night? Yeah, they did
for a long time.
That was when it was ABC. They just switched Monday night.
And then they moved it over to ESPN. But I think with the new TV deal, I think they're eventually going to move it back to ABC.
Honestly, it wasn't bad when Mike Tirico was there. I think he's a pretty solid announcer.
Yeah, I thought Mike Tirico was great. Obviously, him and I thought Gruden was very entertaining on there. Gruden. But ever since then, obviously the Jason Witten thing failed completely.
Booger McFarland.
Oh, Booger McFarland. The Booger mobile.
Booger got on my freaking nerves, dude. I hated Booger. Tessitore was just too much.
Sean McDonough.
He was too bored. He said
Sean McDonough, man.
I like Sean McDonough. He's all right.
Yeah, he wasn't too bad.
My father said every time he watched Sean McDonough, it looked like he was sleeping.
Who is Who's announcing it this year?
Steve Levy, Louis Riddick, and Brian Greasy.
That's right, because they announced it last year. Yeah. I mean, Steve Levy's not too bad.
Steve
pretty good.
Levy.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, Steve
I don't
Levy's
have a
not
problem with Steve Levy, but I will say.
But they do have that alternate broadcast going on with Monday Night Football this year with Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, which I'm very interested in watching.
I was going to mention that.
Maybe they'll flick each other's ears and stuff, just like stuff brothers do,
But guess what?
Rubber band to the head.
Hey, guess what?
Monkey butt.
No, jeez, Dan. Okay, guess what? Alternate broadcasts for Fox. Not every week play-by-play, but Gus Johnson is coming back.
I saw that. I love
Gus Johnson's a great time.
Dude,
yeah, he's fun.
Gus, it's like you make a simple touchdown catch, and he takes it all the way to the top.
Listen,
I love it.
When Fox Sports used to have soccer rights to certain leagues and certain competitions, they try to bring Gus Johnson over to announce some of those games. It was a great time when he did, but a lot of soccer fans ended up hating him for some reason. I loved him. I thought he brought this energy to the game that a lot of English announcers don't.
Right.
Because a lot of them, it's so boring and monotone. I fall asleep sometimes when I listen to them. That's why I like to watch the Spanish broadcast more, because A, I understand, and B, they're just more enthusiastic. And it was something that Gus Johnson brought to the game. And then obviously with his football calls, he's got some legendary football calls, and even basketball, he's got legendary basketball calls. He's just a great, great announcer.
I was just going to say about the Eagles real quick, about their defense. I mean, they don't really have any names that stand out on this defense, really, except for really Fletcher Cox, who's been a mainstay on this team. And of course they have.
Has he been on the team?
He's a 9-year pro, and I'm pretty sure he's spent every year with the Eagles. So, he's pretty solid. I'll give them that. And then they have Josh's former boy Ryan Kerrigan on that defense.
Ooh, traitor.
I remember that.
It hurts Kirby so bad.
Well,
I really don't see anything else with this team. I really don't.
I mean,
I will say Jake Elliott's a pretty
going
good kicker.
to a worse team now. So I'm not really too concerned unless the Eagles win the division.
They're not. They don't have anybody on their roster that.
And in that case, sorry, Ryan Kerrigan, you should have stayed.
Travis Fulgham.
But there's not much else to say about the Eagles.
I don't have anything to say. They're not an impressive team on paper. They're going to finish last in this division. That's really what I think.
Yeah, the Eagles stink. Just to tie it on a boat, they stink. So I think we're all in it.
And this guy who's their head coach is
he's entertaining, but I mean he's a stooge.
Just crazy.
Are we on agreement? Dallas is probably the favorite to win this division. Then
Dallas, Washington, Giants,
and then Giants,
Eagles.
and then Eagles don't even have a chance.
I would say Dallas, Washington, top 2, Giants, Eagles, bottom 2.
So basically what I just said.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the same order.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he was making it seem like he was switching something up, and he just said exactly what we just said.
Yeah.
Like it's so profound.
But before we end things,
I'm tired.
Let's just really quick. Before we end things, let's really quick rate our broadcast announcers from best to worst. Who do you love? Who do you hate?
All right.
Football.
Somebody who slept on, who I think is really good, is Spiro Ditas on CBS. He is one of the best, and a lot of people don't know about him. I think he's like number 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't even know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think he's really good too.
Yeah, he's like 3 or 4. He's slept on a lot, but I think he's a pretty good announcer.
Should we do who we think the best prime time, like the number ones, like who's the best?
Well, we all know who everybody's gonna pick for that. I mean,
who are we gonna pick for that?
Oh, we're talking about like,
because I would go Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth.
Yes, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth.
I think nothing
beats Al Michaels bringing in the Sunday night football.
That's what I'm saying. Like Sunday night football is so special because of Al Michaels, and like it just always feels like when the Super Bowl is on NBC and they're both calling it, it just feels so much bigger. I mean, it just feels so much. It just and I think they get the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, because
NBC, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
They traded with CBS. That's right.
It's going to be fun. I used to hate Chris Collinsworth, but I've grown to get used to him. I wouldn't say I like him, but he does pair really well with Al Michaels, and Al Michaels.
Well, it was a tough act to follow after John Madden.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it was really tough because like when he first came on after Madden retired, I was like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Collinsworth either. Yeah. But he's grown.
He grows on.
He was like, Al, I don't know. This guy.
Al.
Oh man, Bill Simmons does a great impersonation of him. It's great.
Yeah, man, that's something I haven't heard in a while.
What about Drew Brees? How do we think he's going to do with NBC this
year?
Well,
he's got his first. Obviously, he's going to start calling the Notre Dame games with Mike Tirico. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I have faith in Drew. Obviously, they have faith in Drew Brees. But yeah. So I feel like we're all in agreement. Number 1 is probably Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth.
Michaels.
Number two, I would say is probably Jim Nantz, Tony Romo.
Got to put them too.
Just because, like, ever since Tony Romo joined Jim Nantz, like, it just seems like Jim Nantz has been having more fun than he did with, who was it, Phil Sims?
Because
Phil Sims was so boring.
That's the thing is like he didn't draw the emotion out of Jim Nantz, and what Tony Romo was able to do is he's able to pull that emotion from just fans, and then of course he's able to pull it out of Jim Nantz, and you saw that from day one. Like, yeah,
it just feels like Jim Nantz is just having so much more fun. Like he's just having fun now, where it's like when he was calling with Phil Sims, it was very like he would try to like bring emotion, but he couldn't feel it because Phil Sims would bore you to death.
I got a cow that I have to go out and take for some grass.
By the way, his son is a fucking moron too. I can't stand Chris Sims. He's a fucking idiot.
He's everywhere, man. I
don't understand why we give this man a platform, but we do. And he's an idiot. He just says dumb shit just to get people's reactions, and it gets annoying.
Yeah, he's one of those hot take people he's just oh God. Him and like Colin Coward is just annoys it.
Yeah, but Coward will make at least he makes like legitimate points. Chris Sims doesn't.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then I guess we're putting Joe Buck and Troy Aikman at third, but not like at a distant third, because I think they're pretty fun to listen to also.
They are. Nothing beats Welcome to America's Game of the Week.
Joe Buck's gotten better. He used to people used to always shit on him for being boring.
Joe Buck on Jeopardy, though. Joe Buck on Jeopardy, though.
I missed that.
I mean,
fun.
who the hell watches Jeopardy? To be honest, I mean, yeah, legendary show, but who our
when
age
Aaron
watches
Rodgers
Jeopardy?
came on and when Joe Buck came on.
Great.
Cool.
I will say when he calls baseball, normally it's like really, really boring. But I don't know if you guys watched the Field of Dreams game.
Oh my gosh.
He was pretty good that night. He was pretty good that night.
I didn't watch it. We recorded the podcast that night and I totally forgot the Field of Dreams. So like I was upset when I woke up and I was like, damn it, I missed it. I will say this, like,
watched it.
If you listen, because like one of my favorite Super Bowls to watch is Super Bowl 42, the one where the Giants beat the Patriots and stopped the perfect season. Joe Buck called that game, and obviously, the biggest moment was when Eli threw it to Plaxico for the touchdown. He was so monotone, like he didn't capture the gravity of that
helmet catch
touchdown.
He was like,
the helmet catch. He didn't really even react that much. He was like, "Oh my god, that was an amazing!" Like he was like,
"I don't think
David Tyree comes down with it."
Tyree makes the catch. I'm like, it's just like it's a normal catch, for 6 yards. But
and the fact that like Eli had to like escape, he was like he escapes, and it was just so monotone. But you see, like he got better and better. Like when Brady made the comeback against the Falcons, like when they won, when James White got in the end zone, like he went nuts.
Yeah, he was.
So like you saw he progressed better. So that's why they're in third, but they're still great to listen to.
Yeah. You really can't go wrong with any of them. But
no, they're all solid teams.
But Al Michaels is a legend. That's why he gets.
It's gonna suck when he's gone. But he's starting to lose his fastball.
He's been doing it since the 70s.
I mean, think about it. This is the guy who coined who made the "Do you believe in miracles" phrase.
Yeah, Miracle on
famous.
Ice.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
He called
legend.
that.
He's a legend.
So let me ask you all one more thing. How do we feel about Aqib Talib returning to Fox?
I didn't even listen to that broadcast, but I heard it was entertaining. But he was just different.
Yeah,
he's different.
He was very different.
He's different. I'll say that much. Yeah.
Man, I don't mind different. I
don't hate it. And you know what? It draws in a different audience, and I think that's the goal.
I think there should be alternate broadcasts all the time. I think there should be you should be able to listen to different, there should be a version where it's us, say us three just watching the game and not really calling it, just kind of reacting to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should have that option. I feel like that's what the NFL is starting to do, because they realize eventually they're just gonna have to move on to streaming, because that's where everything's moving.
We could do that on Twitter Spaces first Sunday of the year.
We can.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Take a tour around the NFL.
I guess I'm gonna have to open up my Twitter account again.
So
I'll just use the SHS graphics when it's fine.
That's a throwback. But I mean, alternate broadcasts for the NFL, I would love to listen to a Spanish call of a football game.
You can. That's already a possibility.
Yeah, you
really?
can. Yep.
Yeah.
They have it for every game.
I've never been able to find it, but I would love to. So bad.
There's a button on your remote.
It's called the SAP button.
SAP, and if you hit that, you get the Spanish broadcast.
No, sometimes it's not sometimes it's it's on the Spanish channel.
It's on a separate channel, right?
It's on Fox Deportes or something like that.
I see. But I'm telling you, the Spanish broadcasts, amazing.
They are very emotional, for sure.
Yes.
Again, that's why they make soccer so much fun to watch when you watch it in Spanish. You may not understand what the hell they're saying. For you guys, I do, because I speak Spanish. But you just feel the passion. It's great.
Reacting to their goal calls.
Go!
Yeah, goal!
Great. If you're asking me to do it, I'm not doing it. That's racist.
I mean, they keep screaming goal for 10 minutes, and it's you need a breath of air, bud.
No, we're trained to do that from birth. You should see it at a soccer game. It is fantastic when you go to one and somebody scores and you just the whole crowd goes goal. It's great. We need to go to a DC United game.
We should
go to
a
new
new
one.
That is about all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. That wraps up our division previews. Once again, the three-man booth, Dan Dembski and Carlos Martinez. Thanks once again, boys. It was a lot of fun.
we'll see you for the start of the season. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we got to recap week 1.
The start of the season is coming up in just a little while, folks. I'm excited. Carlos is excited. Dan is excited. It's finally back. Ladies and gentlemen, the start of the NFL football season is right around the corner. And the 3-man booth right here on the Kirby on Sports podcast will have you covered all the way to Super Bowl Sunday. It's going to be fun, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
It's a thrill, man. It's a thrill. Football's back. That's all I got.
It's surreal, man. I cannot wait. For our sponsors, Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, and Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. This has been a Kirby on Sports podcast production. Make sure to subscribe to us on all podcast platforms. Check out our website and subscribe, www.kirbyonsports.com. And as always, until the next time you hear our voices, always remember to create greatness. So long and peace out.